It's hard to compose and tell a story that's impactful, even more so without using a single line of dialogue or text. While it is a less common format used in other types of media, silent storytelling particularly shines in video games. Some recent popular examples include The Witness, in which puzzles are explained purely through the narrative technique of show, don't tell, letting the player draw parallels and connections between brain teasers and leaving a lot of room for experimentation. Or the trippy puzzle platformer game, Inside. Even Little Nightmares, both the first game and the prequel, take advantage of this type of narrative approach and do perhaps the best job at silent storytelling than any of the previously mentioned titles. Although, before any of these, came a game that was way ahead of its time. Journey. In Journey, you take the role of a mysterious robed figure traversing a vast desert to reach the summit of a mountain, uncovering pieces of a lost civilization along the way. And while the premise itself is used as a base for many other interesting games, the way Journey presents itself is truly unique. Journey puts the player inside extremely vast spaces, and while it bounds you to a restricted area, it never fails to give you a true sense of scale, especially in the desert sections, so much so that your first playthrough will probably leave a lot of ground uncovered and a lot of things undiscovered. The path through Journey and the way the gameplay changes dynamically through sections is the main way storytelling is done here. The game starts off with little to no restrictions, teaching you the basics and letting you play around with what it has to offer. Some more elements are introduced, such as the white fragments, which lengthen your scarf, more on that later, and chirping, which is used to recharge your flight at specific spots and interact with the environment around you. The rhythm then picks up, the game gets fast-paced and reveals more of itself through a hectic sliding session, accompanied by seemingly sentient pieces of cloth, only to be dropped down into the depths of the city. Notice how the color palette changes progressively too, lending it to dark shades and colder colors as opposed to the previous orange hue and high contrast environments. After a fairly intense section where you are faced with the Stone Guardians, upon reaching the base of the mountain you are stripped of most of your scarf potential, which means no more jumping, which in turn means slow, painful climb to the top. The rope gets more and more gelid to a point where the colors are almost unrecognizable. You are slowed down to a crawl, literally moving against the wind, now being mere moments away from reaching the summit. And then the game explodes once again in a burst of color and complete control over your flight. The end is now clearly visible and you hastily make your way towards it. Landing softly on the top, everything slows down for the last time as your journey comes to a close. And all of this is tied up really nicely by the surprise co-op element, which has you encounter a random player along the way, and I think this is where the storytelling element truly shines. At any point in the game, you may be joined by another robed figure. This moment has an indescribable feeling attached to it. I mean, the quiet of the wasteland being suddenly broken by the sounds of gliding and familiar chirping, only to be met by someone else just like you. Besides the gameplay implications, the length of the scarf and color of the robe serve as an indicator of just how experienced someone is. And the way you experience the game drastically changes depending on that factor. Playing with the red robe has you exploring the environment together, finding tablets that display more of the story, anxiously sneaking past the Storm Guardians and struggling together to climb to the freezing peak. There is no text chat, no proximity voice comms, just chirping. And this is way more than enough to have you communicate with your companion. All of this draws you further and further inside the world of Journey, and enhances the little moments of discovery. It serves as an incredible silent storytelling tool, in which the players are encouraged to work together through positive reinforcements and build their own adventure together. If this moment comes after your second playthrough though, you may encounter White Robe, which is basically a sign that the player has collected all scarf upgrades and has mostly uncovered everything the game has to offer. This changes the experience entirely. White robes are mostly veteran players and they serve as guides, almost guardian angels. Aiming an extended scarf and slower depletion time, they tend to have a set path carved out for red robes. They will most definitely guide you through all of the lore tablets, white fragments and achievements, which takes a little over 90 minutes. One of the most memorable moments I have had out of any other game I've played so far is sharing a moment of meditation with a white robe. After more than an hour of exchanging chirps and learning from them, having reached the summit, the white robe called to me to stand over the edge of the mountain. I turned and sat beside them, silently staring at the landscape below us, now far gone. Without a word, they got up, waited for me to follow suit, we then exchanged a single chirp of gratitude and walked into the light to be reborn once more.